Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And to begin, this will be a longer stream. But to begin, we will talk about Saquon Barkley. And just the fact that he caved. That would be the best word I could put. Because the running backs a couple days ago had a Zoom meeting where a bunch of running backs attended, including Barkley, Jacobs, Nick Chubb, amongst others. And everything Barkley had said at the time was, I'm not signing the franchise tag. I'm not signing the franchise tag. I'm not signing the franchise tag, which was rounded up to about $10.1 million, which is good, especially with the running back market being what it was. Well, Barkley announced on Monday morning that not just did he sign a contract, he signed a contract for $10.1 million and $900,000 in incentives, which it's absurd. The thing that you were mad at, you were just wanted $900 and $900,000 in incentives. That's all you wanted. I thought this was gonna be. I want 15 million. I want 12, and you're gonna pay me it. Instead, no, take the 10, and I'll just want 900,000 in incentives. It was a cave. He caved. And Saquon continues to do this. The Giants are they need Saquon way more than Saquon needs the Giants. And yet somehow it revolves around, I'll take only 900,000 in incentives along with a 10.1 million. Now, granted, he does make 2 million in signing bonus with the franchise tag he would not make initially. But it's still like, that's all you asked for. Like, if you went on this whole escapade, might as well have just said, I want 15 and we'll work our way towards each other. That's what I would have done. My guess is Saquon didn't think it was going to go this far and expected something else. And when it didn't happen, that was kind of it. Next up, we talk Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert signed a massive contract extension, 5 years, $262.5 million. Now, this deal we knew months ago was in the making, and it was close to being done. We just didn't know when it was going to be done. We were actually told that Herbert's contract talks were closer than Burrow's contract talks. $262.5 million, which I'm not good at math. That's about 60 a year or 55 a year, I think. But that is a great contract. It also makes him the highest paid NFL player in history, where the question is, it puts him as a Charger until 2029. CBS Sports Insider Jonathan Jones admits that Herbert's contract could also reach up to $265 million in incentives. He became eligible for an extension this past offseason. And it surpasses the deal that Lamar Jackson got. So season, which could bump up to 53 in incentives every year. Makes more than Jackson, 52 million, Jalen Hurts, 51 million, Aaron Rodgers, 50 million, and Russell Wilson, 48.5. And that's a good deal. Here's the thing. Now all the chips are on the Bengals side. Are you gonna reset the market again with this? Because this is gonna be very interesting. Are you gonna reset the market so you can go and say, "Alright, we'll take 4 years for 200 or 5 years for 263." That's where we're starting. That's really what the next question is. How long does it take before Joe Burrow signs his contract, and where is it on the depth chart? Because the way it works is who is next. And if your teams that have contracts but want to restructure their quarterbacks, maybe it's time that you start considering that too before it gets too expensive. The next thing that happened yesterday was, and we said it, Trayvon Diggs got paid $19.4 million. That could be up to 20.8 million, depending on incentives. That's a good deal for Dallas because it doesn't. He's not the highest paid corner, but he's in the top 8, which is good. Well, top 5, top 8. So he's in good position. But the Giants have also been the side that's been busy, as they have signed Andrew Thomas, their left tackle, to a monster record-breaking 5-year extension, 67 million guaranteed. The deal goes. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. The Giants announced Wednesday morning they have signed left tackle Andrew Thomas to a contract extension. 5 years, $117.5 million contract. 67 million fully guaranteed. Thomas was the 4th overall pick in 2020. He bounced back from a poor rookie campaign. Now, this puts him second among, in terms of his contract, it puts him in second in value behind Trent Williams. So it's not a bad deal. It's more of, okay, we want to pay our guy, we want to keep him around, but we don't want to give him top tackle money. That seems like a good spot for Andrew Thomas to be. Next up, John Mechie. And we'll talk John Mechie and Damar Hamlin. John Mechie, who was recovering from an ACL injury he had in college, and then he had leukemia in oh, not hang on. Well, and then he had cancer, I'll leave it at that. He had cancer, and so he didn't play at all last year. And so when the team announced that, "Oh, he'll be able to play, and he'll have um, no restrictions," that was a great sight to see. Another player who has no restrictions, and it was announced earlier today, was Damar Hamlin. Sean McDermott went and said, "No, he has no restrictions. He's good to go." That's a great sight to see after 7 months of we just seeing him die on the field. The 25-year-old went and basically was able to go in in beginning of camp. He did some single drills, one-on-one drills, which is something he hadn't done, and the media was so happy for it, of course. But I can't wait to see what John Mechie and Damar Hamlin do with this, because this is beyond sports. When you get a health-related issue, especially like cancer or almost dying on a field, you really question your life. Did I do enough? Did I do what I did I make a difference? All these things. And now he can go and be like, "You know what? I have this second chance, I'm gonna make the most of it. Let's see what happens. Next up, the Texans signed Titus Howard to a 3-year extension. The former first-round pick is heading into his 5th season. It's a 3-year deal, $56 million extension. The deal is $36.5 million in guarantees. He'll make about $13.98 million on his 5th-year option of his contract. But with the increase, his new deal makes him the 9th highest paid tackle in terms of dollar value at $18.7 million and $36.5 million guaranteed, which ranks him 4th. So a good job by the Texans. Try to keep your guys around and build for the future as much as you can. If the season doesn't go great, build for the future and see where we can go from there. Next up, it was an interesting thing because we saw this and I was completely shocked. Yesterday, the Saints made a move. They signed Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham from, played with the Saints in the beginning of his career, which was in 2010, and was a dominant force at the tight end position. We were talking like he could be the next Tony Gonzalez. He had that kind of athleticism, that kind of ability, and for 6 years he remained in the gold and black. But he then left, went to Seattle. He had that devastating knee injury. Came back, wasn't exactly the same. Goes to Green Bay, plays there a year. Had some okay success, didn't do much. Goes to Chicago. And his last touchdown catch actually was in a playoff game against the Saints. And we were thinking, oh, that's it. He's done. And then this past season, he did not play at all. He actually only had about 100 yards the last time he played. He had about 167 yards. So the fact the Saints were like, yeah, we'll bring him back. And I was like, 1-day deal and then he's retiring? No, 1 year, 1 whole year. Now, it's not a concern about can he stay healthy. That could be a lot of concern, but I think he's like in a position like Gronk was a number of years ago, where he was just banged up. He came back after that 1 year. He looked good. I think that's the same situation here. Get your body to come back, and let's see what happens. I don't mind it. Let's see what happens. I'm intrigued to see what the Saints do. And next up, there is there's a massive holdouts. 49ers Nick Bosa is seeking a new deal. He's not exactly holding out, more as he's just not practicing. So this was written by Cody Benjamin, who writes underneath, there is optimism about an extension, however. So because if there isn't, we are losing our best guy on defense. It just so happens to be a Bosa brother. So definitely, if you don't get that done, that would be a terrible thing. But the next thing, and this is great news for the 49ers, Brock Purdy has been cleared without restrictions for camp. John Lynch revealed on Tuesday that Purdy is ready to participate. Purdy injured his elbow, his UCL ligament, back in the NFC divisional round. Purdy is expected to be the starter. If Purdy doesn't show what he showed last year, the Niners might be in trouble. What are they going to do? They have Purdy, they have Trey Lance, and then they have Sam Darnold. That is all they have. So this has to work. If this doesn't work, we're talking massive issues. Moving on. That's a big issue. if you're the Niners, if you can't make this work. Next up, Bills running back Naheem Hines is out for the season after a jet ski accident. Supposedly, the way it was written, Naheem Hines was on a jet ski, not moving. It was just there. He's sitting on it, and a guy on a jet ski came and I'm not gonna call it slashed, but hit Hines and in the leg, and that basically ended his season. Now, Hines' doctors have said they're not life-threatening injuries, but almost life-altering injuries. This is huge because Hines was not just their running back, second-string running back, but a return man. He was the guy who returned the 2 kickoff for touchdowns the game after what happened to Damar Hamlin. And Jim Nantz and Tony Romo were like, "It's just fate. It had to go this way." The Bills placed Naheem Hines on the non-football injury list. Now, the thing is, and a lot of players have said this, of how if you are injured before you go into the building, you limp your way into that building. And then you say you got hurt in the building because the team is not the contract states that if you're not in the building when you get hurt or not on the field when you get hurt, therefore we don't have to pay you if we choose. We can, but we don't have to. There's been a lot of instances where teams have not pla paid their players for being injured outside the organization. But Naheem Hines is now out for the season. And this happened to the Bills last year where they lost players at meaningful positions or what became meaningful positions because they lost a certain amount of they lost both safeties around the same time. They lost both corners around the same time. And that really affected what they could do from a back end defensive standpoint. They were still really good, but you could see that there was flaws in what happened. So that's one part of that. Is Naheem Hines is now out for the year. The next thing that happened was Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison got a citation about a week or two ago as he was going 140 miles an hour on the highway, and he basically said was because his I believe he said it was his dog that got sick and he was trying to get it to the vet, but he was going 140 miles an hour. What happened was when the citation news came out, everyone was like, "Well, what is he doing? He's gonna ruin his NFL career. This is a disaster." After he announced that he would bring his animal to the vet, everyone's like, "We good. Completely understandable." It's not. It's not understandable. I get you try to drive fast to get to the vet, but 140 miles an hour is not reasonable or understandable. I'm not saying 100 would have been understandable, but at least say, "Okay, I understand the reason of why he was going fast. However, that does not change the fact he was going 140 miles an hour." That's what should have been said, but that's not what was said. Next up, the NFL came out with this thing earlier today. They go and said the NFL bans equity for employees. It is written that the league has reportedly adopted a new rule prohibiting the giving giving up the employees getting equity in franchises. So basically getting equity stakes in the franchises. So what was gonna happen with Tom Brady when the news came out about Tom Brady and the Dolphins, about how he could potentially become a owner and become the quarterback, that can no longer happen. And that is just the NFL saying, "Yeah, we're not allowing that to happen at all. Period. End of story. It's not happening." If Tom Brady would have done it, the NFL would have made this rule sooner. But since it didn't happen, they just wanna cover their tracks. And finally, we will talk Magic Johnson, Joe Harris, and the Commanders. The deal went through, and who was one of the first news outlets to do that to talk about the new management? CBS. They went to talk to Magic Johnson, who owns only about 4%, which is for them to say he's the owner is not accurate. He's the minority owner. He owns 4% of the company, but he still became the first black owner. They asked him, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And I understand Magic's excitement, but you don't really own the team. You are part of the ownership, but you don't really own the team. Joe Harris owns the team. He has the majority of the stakes. It's like for years, Al Davis was the majority of the ownership for the Raiders, but he didn't own the Raiders on his own. The same goes for here. If you're Magic, you own 4% of the Commanders. You really can't make a decision without Joe Harris making the decision. You really can't. So the question was raised: Will he change his name? Will he do this? Will he do that? How do you feel about being the first black owner and all that stuff? It was basically a hoopla to say Magic Johnson's the owner. We can say and do whatever. Like no, it's just you own 4% of the company. It's like let's do it this way. In Green Bay, if you purchase a ticket in Green Bay, which is like a 50-year waiting list, and then people are 9 months pregnant or like 2 months pregnant, they're already trying to get their child on the waiting list. I'm serious. This is how crazy this is. So they already so if you get a ticket that for the organization, and then you can get the ability to buy a portion of the Packers. You will get like a certificate in the mail that basically says you are now a proud owner of the Green Bay Packers, even though you are not an actual owner. You have a small percentage. It was like not even, I wouldn't even call it a percentage, but it's a percentage of the team. The same thing goes for Magic. He owns 4% of the team. He's not the full owner. If he was the full owner, then you could say he's the owner. Like Jerry Jones, for an example, Robert Kraft, Jerry Jones are the actual owners. They own the team. Where there's players or there's people who don't own the team, but they own a majority stake of the team, and therefore, since they are the majority, they get the title owner, but they are not the owner. The same thing. Joe Harris gets the title of the owner, but he's not fully the owner. Magic Johnson shouldn't get the title of owner because he only owns 4%. It's like saying you own 4% of Amazon. Jeff Jeff Bezos still owns however many percentile. Let's just say 96%. He's more of an owner than I am. because he's closer to 100% than I am. That's the way this works. So, Magic Johnson's not the owner, but the media tries to make it as soon like, yes, he is the owner. He can do whatever. He's gonna bring up great this and that. And everything I've heard is this is a new ownership. The Commanders are gonna be over the next year or so are gonna be looked at very carefully and see, well, maybe I'll get rid of this coach. Maybe I'll bring in this coach. Maybe I'll get rid of this player, bring in that player. Just simple stuff that always happens, but the media will make a big deal out of for no apparent reason. But in all honesty, to be less than 7 weeks away from football, I'm very excited. And the fact that camp has already begun, I'm very excited. Final one is Zach Martin ma- is holding out on the Cowboys, saying, "I want a new contract." I get it. He has no guaranteed money left. He still has 2 years left, but he's got no guaranteed money. Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, Will McClay, get this all done. Let's go. He's one of the best guards in the game. You gotta be paid like one. Now, training camps officially started for the Cowboys Tuesday, and it's a fine $50,000 every day. You cannot get that money back once you are at the facility. You cannot. So it's 2 million. It's $50,000 a day. This is the second day he's not there. 100,000 down the chute. How long is this holdout going to last? And let's see what Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones do about it. I'm sure Dak Prescott has some say and say, hey, let's bring back Zach Martin. We need him. He's the best around, and he's Iron Man on the offensive line. So let's keep him happy. And that's I think what the Cowboys plan should be and what the role of the NFL should be. Keep every player happy. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.